The rise of a legend. They said she was not human. They said no woman could do this. They said Africa had never produced a ruler who could scare empires. They were all wrong. Before her name reached foreign kings. Before soldiers trembled at her shadow. Before maps were redrawn in fear. She was already dangerous. Her story does not begin with victory. It begins with threat. In the heart of Africa, a child was born into a land surrounded by enemies. Her people lived between rivers and forests, rich in life and rich in danger. Empires wanted this land. Gold. Trade routes. Control. From the moment she could walk, she learned one truth. Power decides who lives free and who lives in chains. If you want to understand her, you must understand her world. This was a world where villages vanished overnight. A world where families were taken and never returned. A world where outsiders arrived with smiles and left with slaves. She watched this happen. She remembered everything. As a girl, she listened more than she spoke. She watched elders argue. She watched warriors bleed. She watched leaders fail. And she learned that mercy without strength invited destruction. She learned that fear traveled faster than truth. She learned that silence could hide power. Her father ruled as a chief. He was respected, but surrounded by rivals. Every alliance was fragile. Every celebration carried risk. Many believed his daughter would be nothing more than a political tool, a marriage gift, a forgotten name. They misjudged her. She trained in ways women were not meant to. She learned weapons. She learned strategy. She learned how men thought when they believed they were superior. This knowledge became her weapon. By her teenage years, she already saw what others refused to see. The empires were coming. Not as guests. As owners, foreign traders arrived with gifts and promises. They spoke of friendship. They spoke of progress. They spoke of peace. She heard the lies beneath their words. While others celebrated trade, she prepared for war. She learned foreign languages. She studied enemy customs. She learned how they fought and how they failed. When she finally spoke in council, it shocked everyone. Her voice did not tremble. Her words did not beg. She warned them that surrender would destroy everything. Some laughed. Some feared her. Some listened. That division nearly killed her rise. Plots formed inside her own people. Men who feared losing power planned betrayal. They believed she was too young, too bold, too dangerous. She discovered the plot before it unfolded. And she acted without hesitation. That night changed her forever. Those who challenged her authority were removed. Fear replaced doubt. From that moment, her name carried weight. Her father saw what others could not. He saw a ruler in the making. He gave her command. Her first campaigns were swift and brutal. She did not fight for glory. She fought to send a message. Enemies were defeated before they understood the battle had begun. Supply lines vanished. Leaders disappeared. Villages switched loyalty overnight. She understood something empires often forgot. The land itself was a weapon. Forests hid her forces. Rivers slowed invaders. Heat weakened armored soldiers. She never met enemies on equal ground. She forced them to fight on hers. Stories spread faster than armies. Traders whispered of a queen who did not negotiate. Soldiers spoke of ambushes without warning. Rulers began to ask questions. Who was this woman? How could she resist so effectively? The first spies sent to observe her never returned. The second group returned broken and afraid. Fear entered the empire plans. When foreign commanders demanded tribute, she refused. When gifts were offered, she rejected them. When threats arrived, she prepared traps. She was building more than an army. She was building a reputation. By the time the first true invasion force moved toward her land, she was ready. Her people were united by fear and pride. They knew surrender meant erasure. The first clash was devastating. Empire forces expected disorder. They found precision. Their defeat shocked distant capitals. An African queen had humiliated imperial troops. Her name traveled across oceans. Some called her a monster. Some called her a myth. Some denied her existence entirely. But the damage was real. Empires do not forgive humiliation. They prepare revenge. She knew this. She waited. She planned, because terrifying an empire once was not enough. To survive, she would have to do it again. And next time the cost would be far higher. The queen against the world. The empire did not respond with fear. It responded with anger. Humiliation burned inside distant capitals. Generals were blamed. Officials were punished. Pride demanded revenge. They decided she would be erased. This time, they did not come quietly. They came with numbers. They came with steel. They came with certainty. They believed force would end the problem. She knew they were coming long before they arrived. Information moved faster than armies. Traders loyal to her whispered warnings. Scouts watched roads and rivers. She did not panic. She prepared minds. She gathered her people and spoke plainly. She said war would return. She said many would die. She said survival demanded sacrifice. She did not promise victory. She promised resistance. Some villages hesitated. Some leaders doubted her again. Fear spread. This was her most dangerous moment. She traveled across her land. She stood before farmers and warriors. She reminded them what empire rule meant. Loss of land. Loss of names. Loss of children. Her words were sharp. They cut through comfort. Slowly, loyalty hardened again. When the empire marched inland, they found emptiness. Villages were abandoned. Fields were destroyed. Food was gone. The land had been stripped bare by her order. Empire soldiers marched deeper and weaker. Hunger slowed them. Disease followed them. Morale collapsed. Then the attacks began. They came at night. They came without warning. Arrows fell from darkness. Traps tore through ranks. There was no rest. There was no safety. She refused open battle. She refused fairness. Her strategy was exhaustion. Her weapon was fear. Commanders lost control. Soldiers deserted. Rumors spread that the queen could see everything. She encouraged those rumors. Captured enemies were released with stories. Stories of ambush. Stories of discipline. Stories of punishment. Fear traveled faster than orders. Her generals were loyal but terrified. Success brought reward. Failure brought death. Discipline held the army together. But love began to fade. The empire tried a different path. They sent envoys instead of soldiers. They spoke of peace. They spoke of trade. They spoke of shared rule. She rejected them instantly. She knew peace meant chains. The envoys left alive but broken in pride. Their reports shocked their masters. As the war dragged on, suffering increased. Food grew scarce. Families mourned constantly. Some began to question her choices. Secret meetings formed again. Whispers of surrender returned. This time, betrayal came from within her inner circle. A trusted commander believed survival mattered more than pride. He planned to open a path for Empire forces. She discovered the plot hours before it unfolded. She summoned him alone. No witnesses entered that tent. By morning, his body was displayed. The message was clear. There would be no mercy. Fear restored control. But something broke forever. From that day, many followed her because they were afraid, not because they believed. She understood this and accepted it. The Empire forced a decisive confrontation. They trapped her forces near a river. Cannons were positioned. Escape looked impossible. Empire commanders celebrated early. She moved while they slept. Using hidden paths, her forces crossed the river in silence. At dawn, they attacked from behind. Chaos exploded. Cannons fired blindly. Officers died before giving commands. The camp collapsed into panic. By midday, the Empire army was shattered. Survivors fled, carrying shame across continents. News of the defeat spread fast. Other powers noticed. Some admired her. Others feared rebellion spreading. She became a symbol beyond her land. Enslaved people whispered her name. Rulers questioned Empire's strength. But victory brought new danger. The Empire changed tactics again. They avoided battle. They cut trade. They pressured neighbors. They isolated her slowly. This war could not be fought with arrows. Her land suffered quietly. Wealth vanished. Weapons aged. People grew tired. Time became her enemy. Legends grew around her during these years. Some said spirits protected her. Some said she was cursed. The truth was harsher. She was human. She was exhausted. She carried the weight of every death. But she never showed weakness. She ruled with iron control while the world shifted around her. New powers arrived. Old enemies returned with new faces. Her isolation deepened. The Empire waited patiently. They knew she could not fight forever. They were right. As alliances collapsed and pressure closed, one truth became clear. The final battle would not be fought only with weapons. It would be fought with loyalty. And loyalty was fading. The storm was gathering for the last time. What followed would decide whether her defiance would be remembered as triumph or tragedy. Her greatest test was still ahead. The fall that shook history. The war did not end with defeat. It ended with exhaustion. Years of resistance had drained everything. Food was scarce. Weapons were worn. The land itself felt tired. Her people were still standing but barely breathing. The empires understood this moment. They no longer rushed. They waited. New commanders replaced old ones. New strategies replaced brute force. They surrounded her kingdom slowly. Neighbors were pressured. Allies were bought. Trade routes closed one by one. No army marched. Yet her power weakened every day. Inside her court, silence grew heavy. Advisors spoke carefully. Eyes avoided hers. She felt the change. Authority without trust is fragile. She ruled alone now. Not because she wanted to, because fear had replaced belief. The final betrayal did not begin with hatred. It began with survival. A group of chiefs believed resistance would kill everyone. They believed surrender could save their people. They opened borders quietly. They welcomed empire agents. When she learned the truth, it shattered her. Not because of defeat, because of choice. Her own people had chosen surrender. She answered with fury. Executions followed. Villages burned. Fear returned quickly. But loyalty did not. Her punishment saved control for a moment. It destroyed faith forever. The empire moved immediately. Troops entered key regions, without resistance. No great battle was needed. She tried to rally her warriors. Few answered. Those who remained were loyal but broken. The final confrontation was not legendary. It was quiet. Small, tragic. She was surrounded with only a handful of followers. Soldiers who once feared her now stood calm. History fractures here. Some say she fought until death. Some say she chose death herself. Some say she was captured and erased in silence. Empires control records. Truth does not survive conquest easily. What is certain is this: her rule ended without ceremony. No mercy was shown. No honor was given. Her kingdom was dismantled piece by piece. Borders vanished. Names were changed. Culture was absorbed. The empire declared order restored. To justify conquest, they destroyed her image. They called her savage. They called her cruel. They called her unstable. They needed her to look evil. But stories survived where ink failed. Oral memory carried her forward. Songs whispered her defiance. Elders spoke her name at night. Myths grew around her because truth frightened rulers. Some said she was protected by spirits. Others said she could not be killed. The reality was stronger than myth. She proved empires could bleed. She proved fear was not one-sided. Her fall sent a warning across Africa. Resistance was possible, but the cost was unbearable. Her people paid that price. They faced taxation, forced labor, and erased identity. What she fought to prevent arrived anyway. But later, delayed. That delay mattered. Culture survived longer. Identity endured longer. Memory endured longer. Historians still argue about her choices. Was she too ruthless? Did pride destroy her people? Was surrender inevitable? There are no clean answers. Leadership under empire pressure demands impossible decisions. Her life revealed the truth behind resistance. Victory is not always survival. Defeat is not always failure. She did not win freedom, but she changed history, and that change frightened empires more than victory ever could. Because even in defeat, she proved something dangerous. Power is not absolute, and fear can be turned against those who believe they rule forever. Her fall was not the end. It was the beginning of her legacy. The legacy that still haunts empires. The empires believed silence would finish the story. They believed control would erase memory. They believed time would bury her name. They were wrong. Power ruled the land. But memory ruled the people. New laws arrived. New rulers replaced old ones. Foreign flags stood where her symbols once lived. Order returned on the surface. Fear ruled beneath it. The empire rewrote history carefully. They reduced her to a villain. They described her as cruel and unstable. They said conquest was necessary. They needed that lie to sleep at night. But history does not live only on paper. In villages, her name was whispered after sunset. Elders told children about a queen who never bowed. Songs carried her defiance across generations. She became more powerful in death than she ever was alive. Empires fear armies. They fear symbols more, and she became a symbol they could not destroy. Across Africa, her story traveled, not through books, through voices. Future leaders heard her name and remembered her stand. Rebels remembered her refusal. The enslaved remembered her courage. She became proof that resistance was human. The long-term consequences of her defiance reshaped history. Empires slowed their advance. They planned more carefully. They invested more force. One woman had changed their behavior. She altered the psychology of power. Before her, many believed resistance was useless. After her, people knew empires could bleed. Her story also carried warning. Courage without unity fractures nations. Fear without trust isolates leaders. Her fall taught future generations painful lessons. Strength must be shared. Power must be balanced. Some historians say she failed because her kingdom fell. Others say she succeeded because she delayed conquest. Both are true. What she protected for a time allowed culture to breathe. Language survived longer. Identity endured longer. Time was her greatest gift, and time changed everything. Her legacy still matters because the world still faces power imbalance. Strong nations still pressure weaker ones. Leaders still face impossible choices. Her life asks questions that never fade. How much suffering is worth freedom? When does resistance become destruction? When does leadership become tyranny? There are no simple answers. That is why her story endures. She was not perfect. She was not gentle. She was not always right. She was human. And that humanity terrified empires. Because empires depend on obedience. She chose defiance. Even today, her spirit lives in voices that refuse silence, in movements that challenge dominance, in leaders who choose dignity over comfort. She did not conquer the world. She changed it. Empires ruled land. She ruled memory. And memory is harder to conquer than armies. Her story does not end in defeat. It ends in impact. Passed from one generation to the next like fire. That is why centuries later, her name still carries weight. That is why empires still fear stories like hers. Because the African queen who terrified empires proved one eternal truth. No power lasts forever. And no empire is safe from courage.